Season 7 of Sun Coaches Podcast is proudly brought to you by Titan Sensor. Season 7. That was my number in high school, so maybe this will be lucky for us. We'll see. You know, I've learned over time that when somebody's talking about something you really don't want to talk about, you just can always throw in there, hey, I knew this guy once, and then just pretty much make up whatever you want to, and they won't listen to it. They'll get off track, and you don't have to talk about the uncomfortable thing anymore. Coach, like we do every week, tell everybody where you grew up and where you're from. Sun Coaches Podcast, where not everybody has a funny story, but everybody has a story. Hope you enjoy Season 7 of Sun Coaches Podcast. Sun Coaches is proud to partner with Titan Sensor for Season 6 and 7. Titan is made in the USA, proudly founded and based in Texas. When you connect with Titan, you are not alone. You can collaborate and share templates with other coaches across the country to build reports and foster competition. Used by programs such as State 6A Georgia State champion Grayson High School, Titan can tailor a package to fit your needs. The eye in the sky never lies. Improve your team's performance with Titan. Welcome to Sun Coaches Podcast, Season 7. I'm excited to be joined by the head coach at Thomas Jefferson Academy, Coach Terrance Hennesy. Thanks for being on with me.
Thank you, Coach. I'm excited to be here today.
Yeah, a little outside of the box a little bit. I know you private school guys are probably thinking, man, he never gets us on here. But I did have Jason Cameron he was on the other night, and he's at Calvary Day, so.
Wait now. People at some private schools, we don't consider Calvary Day and Savannah Christian and Benedictine private schools now, okay? I mean, I know you pay tuition to go there, but we're talking apples and bananas or something. I mean, as far as where I'm at. But yeah, I know you had Jason on, and you had oh Lord, his name slips my mind. You had the coach that just retired from Flint River. He was at Rockmart, and
Coach, if you wouldn't have, I can see him. He was at Spalding. He's
yep.
Son's the AD. Yeah, Son's the AD. He's a great guy. Great coach.
And it'll come to me halfway through this conversation. I promise you.
Yeah, but yeah,
I'm sorry.
He's in administration at Flint River now.
Yes.
Mark Wilson's there now.
Yeah, I spoke to him, and he says he regrets that decision on a regular basis too. So,
so where'd you grow up, Coach?
All right, I grew up in Savannah, Georgia, and if you drew a map of the middle of the city of Savannah, I grew up right in the bullseye of it, about 4 blocks away from the old Savannah High School. And I went to Catholic. I was raised Catholic. I went to Catholic school growing up. Went to Benedictine Military School and played for a legend there by the name of Jim Walsh Sr. And it was quite an experience to play for Coach Walsh.
So what all did you play in high school?
I played football, obviously, and I did shot put and discus and track. And then my senior year, they started a wrestling team. And our biology teacher was the coach, and he was a super dude, and I wasn't going to wrestle. And both of our heavyweights got hurt, and he came to me, and he said, Hennesy, I need you for 2 weeks. Can you come out for 2 weeks? Just try it for 2 weeks. So I went out, and I practiced 2 times, and I wrestled my first match, and at the time I weighed 230 pounds, and the weight limit at that point was 275. And in my first match, I dropped a kid from Groves that weighed 274 pounds when he weighed in that morning on my knee. And man, it hurt, but I finished the match, and I wrestled a guy from Effingham. I lost both of them, and a week later I wrestled him again and beat both of them. And I told my wrestling coach, I said, you better tell them other heavyweights to lose some weight because I'm not moving. And man, I loved wrestling. And
you know who was a good wrestling coach?
Who was a good wrestling coach?
Coach Kirk Hoffman.
Yes, he was. The guy at Flint River. That's right. Yeah. So,
man, I'll tell you what, getting off the practice field, your brain falls out, and then you.
Yes, absolutely. But that's what I did, and I was fortunate. I guess unfortunate. We had a lot of injuries my freshman year in high school, and we weren't very good. And so I got to play some as a freshman on the varsity, which at Benedictine didn't happen very often back then because we had a freshman team, a JV team, and a varsity team. And then I was fortunate enough, middle of my sophomore year, I became a starter, and As a junior, I was pretty good. And then as a senior, we didn't have a center. So they moved me to center. Tom Brackett, Jim Walsh retired after my junior year, and Tom Brackett came in and took over and did a great job. And Tom asked me to play center, and I said, only if you'd let me play defense too. So I played a lot of games both ways. It was the hardest thing I ever did physically. And but I loved it. I was 5'9", weighed, like I said, in between 220 and 230 most of my playing career, and playing 4A football down there in Savannah.
So did you get an opportunity to play at the next level, or did you just go to school?
Well, Swanee really wanted me, and I really wanted to go to Swanee, but I couldn't get into Swanee. And I had a partial scholarship offers to Presbyterian in Newberry. And as everybody who's probably listening to this knows, it's not cheap to go to those schools. And my family was not financially in a position to send me there. And so I didn't know what to do. And I went and talked to Coach Walsh, because even though he was retired, he was still our freshman coach and our athletic director. And he said, well, Hennesy, what do you want to do with your life? I said, I want to be a coach. I said, this is the only thing I've ever wanted to do. And he said, well, do you want to be a college coach or a high school coach? Because that matters. And I said, I want to be a high school coach. And he said, why? And that's a good question. I ask myself that a lot now, but my high school coaches made a huge impact in my life. I was not a good person or in a good place my freshman and part of my sophomore year of high school, just for lots of reasons. And they helped me turn my life around. And I wanted to be able to do that for somebody else. So when I told him that story, he shook his head and he said, well, you want a job? And I said, huh? He said, I need a freshman line coach for the freshman football team next year. We'll pay you $1,000. Now I'm 18 years old. It's 1996. I've got Hope Scholarship to go to Armstrong in Savannah, and $1,000 sounded like $1 million to me. So I took the job, and I graduated on a Saturday, and the Monday afterwards, I signed my first contract to be a high school football coach.
That's awesome. Got to go right back to where it all started.
Yeah. And, that was a little bit of a struggle. My first year, I get to say, heck, my first year coaching, I got to coach Josh Millard, who played at the University of Georgia and played with the Colts and the Broncos and the Falcons. And, and I got to coach some of the guys that they were juniors when I was a senior, but heck, I got to coach them that first year coaching but had a really good experience there. Unfortunately, my grades didn't stay where they needed to be, and I lost hope. And so it took me, a lot of people, Chris, go to school for 11 years to graduate from college. They just call them doctors. Mm-hmm. And, but it took me 11 years to graduate. I went a quarter or two here, and then I would take a quarter or two off to make money. And then they switched to semesters, and I lost some credit. And so after 11 years, a marriage, and my first child, I finally graduated from Armstrong. And lo and behold, Benedictine said, hey, we'd love to hire you, but we don't have a teaching slot for you. And so for the first time in my life, I've graduated, and now I'm looking for a job. So,
did all that work and no teaching slot?
No, and I understand it. I mean, at private schools, bigger private schools like Benedictine and Calvary and Christian and Marist, they don't usually create teaching slots. And so, and particularly at that time at Benedictine, because their enrollment was down a little bit. We were down football wise. Bob Herndon had been hired as the coach my last year there. And then, it was a couple of years before they hired Coach Britt, who's done a fantastic job there. So I started putting out feelers, and Buddy Sorrow had been our offensive coordinator for 1 year at Benedictine, and he put out some feelers for me, and it really came down to Robbie Robinson at McIntosh County Academy offered me a job, and John Kinney had just been hired at Southeast Bullock, and he offered me a job, and the difference for me was John, because I had 11 years coaching, John offered me his offensive coordinator position, and I didn't know what all that entailed at the time, or I felt like I was ready to be a coordinator after coaching for 11 years, and I wasn't, to be quite honest with you. And And so I went and worked at Southeast Bullock for a year, and you know, had the first time in public school, and learned a lot of things, you know, about how public schools work versus private. And you know, we weren't very good. I think we won 3 games that year. And about a week after the season gets over, I get called in the principal office, and they said, Coach, we made a mistake when we hired you. I said, uh-oh. I said, I promise you we'll get better at football. And they said, no, we hired too many English teachers. And I said, do I have to be looking for a job in January? And they said, no, we're going to let you finish the year. And we're not sure if it's you or the other English teacher we hired, but one of you won't get renewed just because we hired too many people. And I said, you mean the other English teacher whose uncle is the head of human resources for Bullock County? And they said, well, yes. I said, understood. They said, but we think Statesboro and Portal might need a job, might need an English teacher, and they're always looking for coaches. I said, well, I'll have to think about that. And about that time, Buddy Sorrow came out of retirement. And he took the head coaching job at a small private school in Waynesboro, Edmund Burke Academy. And he and I had stayed in real close contact. He was actually our DC that year at Southeast Bullock, just as a community coach. And because he had coached Coach Kenny in high school. And so Buddy tries to hire me, and I go in and I like it. And of course, it's a massive pay cut. But the one thing was that I needed a job for my wife. She's a special ed teacher. And so we interviewed in Burke County, Jefferson County, Jenkins County, and we can't find a job for her. And they hold the job for me till right after spring practice. And they need a decision on that Monday. So me and my wife, we sit down. I said, we got two choices. We can go back to Savannah, where we're both from, and we can both find jobs in Chatham County, because Chatham County is always looking for teachers and always looking for coaches. I said, or we can go to Edmund Burke, and we'll find you a job. And her exact words were, I'm not going back to teach in Chatham County. And so we went to Waynesboro.
Yeah,
and
so
she ended up working.
Yeah,
that was an easy decision. You know, we went to Edmund Burke. She got a job in Richmond County at a school she loved in South Richmond County called Diamond Lakes Elementary. I was Buddy's assistant for 5 years. We played for 2 state championships, lost both of them, one of them with 20 seconds left to go to Piedmont Academy and Rhett Farmer, when he had an offensive line that the University of Georgia would have liked to have had back then. And Buddy retired after 5 years again, and I got named the head coach. And so you know, at about, 16 or 17 years into it, I got to be a head coach. And I know I've heard you say before that you thought you were ready to be a head coach when you got your head coaching job, and boy, were you not. And that's exactly how I felt after, now that I've looked back at it. I really had no clue what I was doing as far as being a head coach. I'd been the Buddy's coordinator and felt good about that. But, and you know, Buddy tells me he's retiring in January. The head of school says, hey, coach, you're my guy. We're not even opening it up. It's your job. Congratulations. And so I'm meeting with the teams and this, that, the other, and doing summer schedules. And all of a sudden I get called in on April 1, and my head of school says, Coach, I'm leaving Edmund Burke. And first thing that went off in my head, I went, uh-oh. And they hired a new head of school, and I know private schools and public schools are different, but, you know, when you have an administrative change at a private school, just like at a public school, you've always got to wonder, how's this guy going to be? You know, is he going to have my back? And he, you know, he and I didn't get along very well that first year, and so after the football season, we went 5-5, which was actually a pretty good accomplishment. And then, you know, I just kind of decided my dad was in a little poor health, and because I really wasn't getting along with my head of school. By the way, he and I now are very good friends. It's funny. We both talk now, and he's like, man, I was probably too hard on you. And I was like, well, I was comparing you to the other guy, and that wasn't fair. And, but I needed to get closer to home, to get closer to my dad, who lived in Brunswick. And I got hired at Bullock Academy to be the head football coach down there in Statesboro.
So how was that transition from your first ever head coaching job to going into the second one, did you change some things up, or did you keep things the same, or had you found your system yet, or were you still working on it?
Well, I felt like at Edmund Burke, I had to try to be like Buddy Sara because Buddy had been so successful. And before we got there, they had been really down for a couple of years. And so I felt like I had to try to be like Buddy. And anybody that knows Buddy knows that he's a yeller and he's a screamer, and he loves his kids now. Don't get me wrong. But Buddy's a yeller and a screamer, and I tried to be him, and that's not who I am. And so when I went to Bullock, I felt like I could be Terrance Hennesy. And that's, I'm more of I'm going to yell and scream sometimes, but, I'm more of a pull you to the side and tell you how you messed up. And because that's the kind of thing I related to better as a player than the guy that dog cussed you or threw tobacco in your face or something like that. And so, at Bullock Academy, we ran the flex bone and the wishbone, and which is what I really wanted to do. I wanted to kind of merge the two. And we had some success early. And then Ronnie Hodges was the coach before me, and he had retired. And my second year, I taught Ronnie out of retirement to be my defense coordinator. And Ronnie did change defenses because I'm a 4-2-5 wide tackle 6 guy, and Ronnie's a 50 guy. But I let Ronnie, you're going to hire somebody with a bunch of experience. You let that guy do his thing. And we were pretty successful at Bullock Academy, not as successful as they wanted us to be. I never had a losing season in the 4 years. I think my best year was 8-4. But after 4 years, they kind of knew this was going to happen. We hired a new athletic director on June the 1st, the year before my last season. And he was a guy who was a retired public school coach. And I'd heard rumors that when they hired me, they really wanted to hire him, but he couldn't retire at the time. And so, after my 4th season, I get called in about 2 weeks later and get told that I'm being let go. And I'm not going to lie, that was pretty hard. That was probably, as far as my career is concerned, one of the hardest things that I've ever had to deal with.
Yeah, it's never fun when they call you in and tell you we need a letter of resignation or non-renewal.
Well, that's, and I got told that, and, private schools are a little bit different than public. And, and the worst part about it all is I get told this on a Friday, and I get told I'm going to get hey, on Monday, we need to know if you're going to resign or not. So I went home, and on Saturday I told my kids, which was really hard. Unbelievably hard. And then my kids asked, do we have to keep this a secret? I said, well, we'll help you deal with it if you talk to your friends about it. And they said yes. So they talked to their friends about it. And I think that kind of upset the powers that be. And so at 8:05 that Monday morning, there was a meeting for the football team that I wasn't invited to, where it was announced that I had been let go, and that athletic director was the new head football coach. And it is what it is. I had a great experience at Bullock Academy. I learned a lot of things about me and about how to be a head football coach. A lot of great people there. A lot of great people. And, and again, it is what it is. It's the business that you and I chose to be in. So, so I don't take professional decisions personally or vice versa. And there's a lot of people there that helped me out a lot while I was there. And some of them still help me out a lot today. One of them being a doctor who's an orthopedic down there. We've had some kids get hurt here in Louisville, and they can't get in Augusta. And I call him, and he's like, Coach, what time do they want to be seen tomorrow? And, so those kind of, I still have some of those relationships with the people in Statesboro, which is awesome. And no ill will to the school or anybody who was involved in that situation. And now my good friend, Aaron Phillips, who was an assistant with me and then for me my 1 year as the head coach at EBA, is the head coach down there and doing great things. I was happy to see them win a state championship last year. And but then now I'm looking for a job, and this is the first time I've ever been looking for a job where, hey, I got fired. And everybody knows you got fired. There's no secrets in this business. As you probably know better than anybody. And so I put in for a couple of head jobs, and I got an interview. I was one of 3 people they interviewed down at Tift area, and I go down and I interview, and I felt like it went really, really good. And I called Buddy Sara because Buddy's Buddy by this point is my best friend and my father figure because my father passed away while I was at Bullock, and Buddy says, Buddy wants to know how it goes. And, man, it went great. This, that, and the other. I feel like I got a shot. And Buddy says, well, I hate to tell you this, but you don't. I said, huh? He said, he goes, I know who they interviewed, all three of them. He said, you're the number 2 choice, but the other guy they interviewed's last name is Satterfield, and he's won a few state championships in the GHSA. And if he wants the job, you're not getting it. And he was right. And so then I was like, well, I guess I'm not going to be a head coach. And by this point, I had kind of decided that I was going to stay in the private school ranks because I just been in the private school too long. And, when I was at Southeast Bullock, Chris, it would take me 3 or 4 hours on Sundays to do lesson plans. And I only had 2 preps. But we had to link things to standards on their website. We couldn't just list the standard. We'd do it on their website. And so I just decided that hey, I'll never get to retire, but I'm going to do that. And so I start sending out for assistant jobs, and I get offered an assistant's job to be the O-line, D-line coach at Valwood. Had kind of told them I was going to take the job, but they never sent me a contract. And then Alan Lowe, who just retired a couple of years ago as a head football coach at Deerfield Windsor and was a head coach at Calvary Day School, and he's just now retiring as the head of school at Deerfield Windsor. He called me and said, hey, have you found a job yet? And I said, no. Yeah, coach, I'm going to come down there and play against y'all. I'm going to be an assistant at Valwood. And he said, hey, do you want to be a head coach? And I was like, well, where? He said, my baseball coach just got hired as the head of school at Thomas Jefferson Academy in Louisville. Do you know it? I said, yeah, we played them every year. They were rivals when we were at Edmund Burke. And he said, well, I'm going to give him your number if you're interested. And I said, yeah. So a guy named by the name of Chris Chafich called me. We talked. It was Holy Saturday, the day before Easter. I was sat on my mom's front porch and talked to him for an hour. And then that Monday or Tuesday, I was driving my daughters down to watch the women's national team play soccer in Jacksonville during our spring break. And he called me again, and we talked for about 2 hours. My daughters had their headphones on, on their phones or on their tablets, and they didn't hear a word. And then I came and met the head of the board of directors here. And the first time I met Chris face to face, he offered me the head football job and athletic director and teacher job here at Thomas Jefferson, and had to go home and told him I can't make this decision on my own, and talked to my wife, and who had some medical stuff as well. And I was like, here we are again. Our 2 options are we go to Louisville and I'm the head coach, or we go to Valwood and I'm an assistant. And I think she looked on the Google machine and saw how farther away Valdosta was from Savannah, which is where her mama and my mama are. And all of her doctors were in Savannah, and she wanted to keep her doctors. And so we decided that, hey, we're going to go to Louisville and be the head football coach and athletic director. And so that's how I got here.
So what was the first year like at Thomas Jefferson? It's your 3rd head coaching job, and you've already probably got a system established by now. So what was the most important thing you had to do when you got there?
We had to establish being tough, being physically tough. They had run the spread, and when I mean the spread, I got their playbook, and it was 50 different formations and 20 different motions and just a lot of stuff. And they had been more of an I team the year before, and they just weren't. The kids weren't tough, and so we had to get tough. So we went straight the first year 2 tight end wishbone, and we didn't do anything. I mean, we'd get in 4 wide to throw on 3rd and long. But besides that, we were 2 tight end wishbone and just pound it. And we were 4-2-5 or 6-2, whatever you want to call the wide tackle 6 on defense. And we blitzed, but it's our system. And that first year was rough. I mean, we went 5-5. We lost a lot of games by a lot of points. We won one game we went 6-5. Where did we go? I'm sorry. No, we went 5-1. We actually tied a game. That's right. But we won a game we shouldn't have won, and had some success. And I think that success got the kids to buy in. And, one of the things that's a little bit different at Thomas Jefferson is because we're so small, At that time, we had 72 kids in the high school, and probably another, I don't know, 60 kids in the middle school. And because of our size, we don't have much of a staff. And so it was me and one other coach, and we coached the varsity in the middle school. And it was hard. I tell you what, you asked about, hey, you getting into being a head football coach. I didn't have a clue what I was getting into when I agreed to be the athletic director at a school this size. There's a lot of other things besides just, hey, scheduling and making sure you have officials when you're at a school this size. And but I was really happy after the first year, and I worked a lot with our middle school. I mean, he and I coached both teams, and we had a very large 8th grade class, and what we felt like would be a really good 8th grade class. And so I was really excited after that first year about the future.
And after that first year, is that when y'all went on that run?
That is. And, we still weren't very good, but we were in a single A classification, which there weren't many teams in it. And we won 4 straight state championships, but we got better every year. And, the third year we won the state championship, we had the best record that we had ever in a year. We went 12-1, and the only team we lost to was Brentwood. Well, Brentwood also went 12-1. They won the AA state championship, and the only team they lost to was John Millage Academy, who had won the AAA state championship, which was the highest classification in our association. And then year 4, year 4 is the proudest I was of any of these teams, and I'm proud of all of them. But we lost 2 straight games right at the end of the season, and one of them was to Robert Toombs and down in Lions, and we knew that was who we were going to play for a state championship. And when we got to Mercer, or when we got started preparing, we have 2 weeks to prepare for our state championship. You could tell our kids were locked in, and they were upset about losing that game. And the team we lost to the last game of the season, they won the AA state championship. We didn't feel so bad about that, but we put a pretty good whooping on Robert Toombs that year in Mercer. And I was really proud of the team about the way they didn't let those 2 losses, set them back or get them down, and we took care of business. And so it was a lot of fun. It was a great run. Like I said, it was that kind of that class, but it wasn't just that class. We had some, kids above them and below them that really contributed to those state championship teams and that state championship run.
Yeah, winning 4 in a row is pretty special. I don't care what league you're in. I don't care what classification you're in. I don't care what sport you're playing. That's a big deal. It means a lot to your community, your school, and it just makes going to work fun, I would imagine.
It does. And, and it did. It meant a lot. They had it at Thomas Jefferson. They had a chance to three-peat one other time, and some daddies even had three-peat shirts and hats made. And so when we got to where we were playing for a 3rd and a 4th, I made sure that I sent it out there. There to be no T-shirts made and no hats made. We'll make them after the fact. You'll get them in January, and we did. But it was a lot of fun. A lot of great memories. Those kids, just like all the kids I've coached, meant so much to me. I still keep in touch with a lot of them. And the great thing about our school is because we're so small and so community-oriented, a lot of those kids, they've got younger brothers or sisters that are in high school and middle school now, or even some of them have nephews and nieces that are starting to come up through here. And so it's really awesome. We don't ever lose those kids. Like most of them stay around here, not all of them, but most of them stay around here. So we still see them on Friday nights or at basketball games or at baseball games. And the best part about it was it wasn't just our football team that was successful during that run. We won, I think, 3 softball state championships kind of during that 5 or 6 year span. My first 5 years here, we won 3 baseball state championships. We won a girls basketball state championship. We won a boys basketball, the first one ever in the school's history during that run. So it was really a special time to be at Thomas Jefferson Academy, and the fact that because I'm the athletic director, I kind of got to be at the head of all that meant a whole lot to me.
So what some of the challenges you face? I know we were talking the other day, and you said that you're the only one with a CDL, and you don't have a big coaching staff, and you've got to deal with the junior program and the middle school program and the high school program. And I mean, is Thomas Jefferson's what, K through 12?
Yeah, pre-K through 12, like K3, 3-year-olds through 12. And
Gotcha.
the biggest thing is kind of our size. I mean, because of our size, we just can't hire people. And then we can't, I mean, let's be honest with you. If you had a chance to come to Thomas Jefferson Academy, or if you had a chance to go to Jefferson County High School, there's probably going to be at very least a $10,000 or $15,000 pay difference. And then we can't offer you all the benefits that public schools can offer you, like retirement and health insurance and things like that. And so we just haven't been able to hire a whole lot of coaches. I have 2 full-time varsity assistant coaches this year, and I say full-time. That's all, like one of them is in the weight room for me and doing a great job, and he's running my offense. And the other one is a retired guy that's ex-military, and he's coached some at like NAIA and D3 level and JUCO level, and he's down here helping take care of his grandmother. So he's kind of a community coach, but he's here every day and working. And then you talk about the challenges. We had 13 kids signed up to play middle school football this year. And we really didn't have an experienced football coach to coach them. So I felt like I had to be that head football coach because I didn't want to do anything. I wanted to do everything I could to limit the chances of kids getting injured so we could maybe play most of our season. And now we're down to 11. And matter of fact, the day this podcast is going to air, we're going to play our 5th game, which is going to be our last game. And we haven't made it all the way through the season. We had to cancel 3 games, but those are the kind of challenges. And then, all of a sudden we have a bus route that runs to Rennes and back. And, all of a sudden that bus driver gets sick unexpectedly. Well, I'm the only guy on campus with a CDL. So guess who gets to run the bus route that day, at least that morning. I have to, I drive most of our athletic teams. Our baseball team played in the second round of the playoffs last year. We had to go to Douglas. And so I got to drive to Douglas 2 days, 2 out of 3 days unfortunately for us to lose in 90-degree heat in a bus that doesn't have air conditioning. And so that happens a lot. But I'm going to be honest with you, Chris, for all the challenges that we have, I'm going to be honest with you, the biggest challenge that we've faced since I've been here happened February 29th, 2 years ago, when one of our juniors, who was a football player and just an all-around great kid, died tragically in a shooting accident and at his home. I mean, it was kid's name was Carter Gay, just one of the best young men I've ever had the pleasure to coach. And I don't know if, particularly, I don't know if you've ever lost a kid that was that was one of your players, but at a school like ours, with 70-something kids in the high school and only 270 kids pre-K through 12, and a community like Louisville, I know you're from around here, so you know about just how small Jefferson County is. That really rocked us, to the core. And it's the hardest thing I've ever had to deal with as a football coach or athletic director was Carter's loss.
Yeah, that is a problem. We lost one of our golfers passed away last week at Dodge County, and just out of the blue, underlying heart condition, junior. Ooh. Very popular, same thing, big junior class, close knit, led the student section, worked out here at the golf course where I live in Hawkinsville, and just a good kid, fine young man. A few times I got to talk to him and see him around the golf course, but I get it, and I've coached places we've lost players too, and it doesn't matter what size school you are, but I imagine when you're such a small, community-based school like you are, that really is harder to deal with.
It was, but our community rallied around us, and that's one of the things about the GISA and the GIAA. Not only did our community rally around us, all the schools around us. See, we're kind of in the middle of a bunch of schools. Brentwood's 25 miles away from us. Edmundburg's 25 miles away. Robert Toombs is 50 miles. Briarwood is 45 miles. Augusta Prep, Westminster Christian. All those schools kind of rallied around us too, and which was awesome. Like that, they put it on social media. They had Wear Blue for Carter Day. And anything we needed, and we had to cancel some athletic events, and everybody, some of them were region things, you got to make those up. And they're like, Coach, don't worry about it. We'll take care of it, and that was really awesome. And then, and so it was, it was hard, but our community rallied around us, and it was it was just awesome to see. And then 6 months later, I guess the next hardest challenge I faced as a coach, we got hit with Hurricane Helene, and that was unbelievably difficult as well. So
yeah, that whole area of the state got smoked when the hurricane came through. I know my parents still lived in Evans, and they just now got their deck fixed.
Well, I got my roof fixed 2.5 weeks ago.
Yeah, I mean, there's still stuff that, it's unbelievable, the devastation that came through there and the lack of resources, and, that's a whole nother discussion.
Yeah.
But that was not handled very well at the higher levels.
No, it wasn't. But, but again, people rallied around us. We were supposed to play Gatewood the following Friday night. And on Sunday, Gatewood's like, hey, we're not trying to be jerks, but we kind of need to know in case we can find another game. I said, I can't. I had 25 kids on the team that year. I sent a text message on Saturday afternoon to all of them after the hurricane, and I had literally only heard from 3 of my kids because there was no cell phone service in Jefferson County.
Right.
And so I just told them we couldn't play, and I think they were a little bit upset at us, but then they rallied around us, and it's funny because we play Gatewood Friday night, and it'll be exactly 1 year to the day. They came down here the Thursday after the hurricane with truckloads of supplies for us: water, Gatorade, food, paper towels, toilet paper, diapers, wipes, just unbelievable load. And their athletic director and their head of school brought it, and they were like, we had no idea, and because they said it looked like a war zone. And that's exactly what it looked like. I mean, we missed 3 weeks of school because of it. And, and we were given the option of kind of, hey, do we want to finish the season or not? Luckily, our school, for the most part, was spared. I mean, there was some damage here or there, but, I mean, the biggest thing I dealt with was our bathroom's roof literally flipped over the back of our bleachers and landed where our cheerleaders stand, whole, on the football field. And so our ninth game, I don't know, I guess it was the week of Halloween last year, every day before the game, after practice, I had to go out and shop vac my football field for glass where that roof landed. And but I mean, people rallied around us, and it was we played every game we were supposed to play, and the results weren't pretty, but we did get to play, and I think that was a big deal.
Yeah, it's not like you've got state funding to fall back on or somebody's going to bail you out. I mean, it's really up to the parents and the community and the alumni and your surrounding schools, like you said, that are in the same league with you and in the same association with you. I know for a fact, GHSA, they'll pray for you. They'll call you and check on you. Hey man, we heard you had a bad, whatever it is, and man, we sure are praying for you. But that's about all you're going to get from the GHSA.
But we still expect you to be here on Friday night or Tuesday or whatever, to play because, we got a contract and you're supposed to play this game.
Yeah, that's right.
And, and I think that's one of the differences in the two associations. Our association is very, each school, Buddy Sorrow told it to me the best. We're in the GISA. That I is very big. That independent, and so it's been awesome to see those two challenges, how everybody rallied around us, and not just us, by the way, because other private schools, Augusta was just as bad as where we were. Westminster of Augusta, their campus was, they had, I think their lights fell down. And we got lucky. We put up new lights in July before the hurricane hit, and had we not, all of our old lights would have been on my football field. But yeah, it is pretty special, and that's one of the reasons why I've stayed in the GISA, and I've got friends and buddies who are in coaching, and they're all like, when are you coming back to Savannah? And hey, this guy's looking for an assistant at Savannah Christian or Calvary Day, and I got a good friend of mine's the head of school at Calvary Day, Hunter Chadwick, and Dr. Hunter Chadwick. Got to throw that in. And he's a former football coach. And he's talked to me a couple times, and I just, I like the association I'm in. And yeah, we're small and we'll never be as big or as fancy as the GHSA, but that's not for everybody. And I don't think everybody can understand that. And I'll tell you, when it came to when I came into this association, me and Buddy Sorrow both thought, man, this is going to be kind of easy because, most of the coaches in the we thought most of the coaches in the GISA were young coaches and, this, that, and the other, and we'd be able to use experience. And, well, we were wrong. I mean, either there's a bunch of retired public school coaches like Coach Hoffman and Coach Satterfield, but there's also a lot of really good coaches in our association that have been in it for a long time and know what they're doing and know how to handle. Our coaches deal with things that GHSA coaches don't deal with. I mean, how would the head coach at Valdosta deal with having 20 players on his team? And, or how would he deal with having, hey, you got to coach the middle school and the varsity team. And, and those are just different challenges. And I know Valdosta and public schools have challenges as well, but, you got to be a special person to deal with, particularly the smaller schools in our association, all of the different challenges that we deal with.
Well, and you're all in the same boat. It's not like they're not throwing you against a team that's got 50 guys on the team, or, you're all the same size and the same, you know what I mean? You don't feel as overmatched. It's not like, well, man, they got 35 kids and, we have 12. Well, you're going to have similar numbers. You're all kind of fighting the same battles, and you're all dealing with the same kind of stuff. And
it seems like there's always one team, that, hey, all of a sudden they've got a lot more kids than us. And of course, everybody wants to throw out, and I know private schools get a bad rap for this. They're out recruiting. And I'll be honest with you, there are a lot of private schools that do recruit. But sometimes you just during that run that we had, I had 30 players on the roster every year. Well, it was because that class had 13 football players in it. And as soon as that class graduated, I was down to 20. But people accused us of recruiting because a couple of kids came in here or there. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. How are we going to recruit anybody? And, it's just, I've got 25 on the roster. Edmund Burke's got 20-something. Briarwood's got 20-something. Robert Toombs has 20-something. Now, Brentwood's that team right now. They've got about 40 on the team, and they're growing. And we do play some bigger classification schools in our association that might have, we've got to because our association's so small. But, I'm not lining up to go play somebody like, the likes of John Millage Academy or something like that. You got to be a little bit smart about who you schedule. And John Millage understands that. And JT's a super guy and a really good football coach. And of course we won 4 straight at the same time. And then, he went for the 5-peat and lost in the state championship. So I try to remind him always that I'm the first 4-peat coach in GISA history because I won 2 games before his game. About 5 hours. I'm the first 4-peat coach in GISA. So
there you go.
But it's there's a lot of special stuff about our association and our schools, and I think the Georgia High School Association, I feel like they've helped our association get some teams back because they don't, they don't know how to deal with private schools all the time. And some of the decisions they make upset those private schools. And, we're more than happy to take them back because the more numbers we have, the better it is for our association.
Well, what are some things over the years as someone that's been in the association for so long as a head coach and Benedictine's always been in the GHSA, but still you're a private school guy. What are some things that over the years you've noticed that have just that have changed, if anything?
The toys that the kids have, and when I say that, of course, cell phones, which, I heard a coach when I first got into coaching, I went to a GACA clinic and somebody pulled out a camera and all of a sudden everybody stopped doing everything. And they're like, put the camera away. And then somebody pulled out a cell phone about 10 years later and a coach that I really respect, I'm not going to name him, but said, you know what, that's going to lead to more coaches being fired than anything else is cell phones with cameras. And I'm not sure he's not right, but the kids, they have all these different gadgets now, iPads, cell phones, smartphones. I feel like, kids don't get told no as much as they used to get told no. And that starts at home, but it's also at school. And, and at practice and things like that. And, that's been one of the things. Everybody says kids are different. I don't think kids are different. I think we're different. And, I think COVID changed us a lot. I think it set us back as far as a teaching, whether you're teaching football or whether you're teaching anything. I really think it set us back, and I don't think we'll know for another 15 or 20 years just how far back it set us. That 6 months or 3 months shutdown that we had, and of course some places were shut down longer than that. But I still think kids still want to be valued, and kids still want to be loved. And if and that's one of the things that I stress to our kids, that I love each and every one of them. And I guess it's one of the reasons why I like being at a smaller school. I mean, I can tell you the name of every kid I've ever coached at Thomas Jefferson Academy. And I don't think I can tell you the name of every kid I coached my 11 years at Benedictine, because we had 80 kids on the team. I want, my thing is I want our kids to feel loved, that I don't just care about what they do on Friday nights or what they do at football practice or what they do while they're at school. I'm worried about them when they're at home. I tell my guys all the time, make good choices, but don't make a bad choice because you made another bad choice. And if you need me, my phone's always on, and I've had some kids take advantage of that offer, and I'm here for them. And that's I just want to make sure they know that. And I don't think kids feel that anymore. I knew that my mom and dad were always there for me, 24/7, 365. My dad lived an hour and a half away down in Brunswick, and he was at everything. He was at everything I ever did until he passed away. And like I was a head soccer coach at Benedictine for a few years. I left that off, and we went and played a playoff game in Tifton, and he showed up at my playoff game. My dad knew nothing about soccer, and, but he was there for me, and my mom was there for me, and I just feel like kids don't get as much of that anymore. Like I don't. I mean, and that's it concerns me. I mean, because I want kids to know that every kid should have at least two people and that's behind them. I understand situations where there's not always a mom and a dad. Our mom or dad lives a long way away, not just an hour and a half, but if I can be one of those two people for the kids that I coach and the kids that I teach, I'm going to be that person. And and I feel like I can do that at a place like Thomas Jefferson.
Well, somebody that's been doing it as long as you have and been a head coach as long as you have, what's some advice you have for some of the younger coaches that are getting into the profession and they might be thinking about going the private school route or maybe not? Either way, I mean, the advice is probably still the same. What would you tell a young person going into coaching now? Besides, don't do it.
No, well, yeah, obviously. Can't you make more money doing something else?
We were all told.
That's right. We were all told that. And but man, that $1,000, that was like $1 million when I was 18 years old, Chris. It's funny. One of my former players here just graduated from the University of Georgia a year and a half ago, and one of his last classes, and he had to interview an athletic director, and so. And I think his bachelor's in sports management, and now he's doing the GTAP program or the MAT program. And he asked me that same question. And I said, number one, above all else, do not get your CDL. Because if you get your CDL, it's going to be, you're going to work. And, but no, I think the biggest thing is do it all. One of the things I see about young coaches, whether private school or public school, because I know a lot of young coaches at both, I don't feel like coaches feel like they have to work as hard as they used to. I'll give you a great example. That first year coaching, I'm coaching the freshman football team, and I'm getting paid $1,000. And we get done, I don't know, after 7 games. The varsity still has 4 games left, and the head varsity coach, Coach Braggett, says, "Hey, I want you at practice on Monday. You're going to work with you're going to help Wayne Munch, our offensive line coach, for the rest of the year." And it wasn't a question. It was, you're going to do this. And then when we went to the quarterfinals that year, we lost to, who did we lose to? We lost to Lowndes, Milt Miller at Lowndes in the quarterfinals because Milt went for 2 and they blocked one of our extra points. And And then after football season was over, Coach Walsh, my AD, was like, "Hey, we got basketball games Friday. I need you there to work." And there was never ever, there was never, "Hey, I'm gonna pay you to do this." And to be quite honest with you, I wasn't paid. But so I worked basketball games, I worked football games, or baseball games. I did what I needed to do. I was the soccer coach, not because I wanted to be the soccer coach, but we needed a soccer coach, and I had played soccer growing up. And nowadays, I don't think coaches work that hard. They look at you funny when they say, "Hey, I need you to run the clock for a freshman football game." And so, just be willing to do the extra things because it means a lot to people. And that's what I tell. That's what I tell our coaches when they get hired is, you need to be seen as someone who cares about these kids, not just during football season. You need to be at things and you need to work things, and not just at the varsity level, so that people know you care about your school and your community. And so that's what we stress here. My basketball coach is my assistant middle school coach, and he'll tell you that he's not a football coach. But he wanted to help out, so he's helping us out, and he's been an awesome help to me this year. And so that's what you got to be willing to do. You got to be willing to do things that you're not paid for, just so the kids and the people around you know that you really care about them, and you're not just there to collect a paycheck.
Well, Coach, you've definitely cared for kids for a long time, and you've poured into these kids at Thomas Jefferson now, and done something for the first time in GISA history for Pete. And even if it was by 5 hours,
that's right.
But
that's right.
Hey, if it's still first right there. That's awesome. And right. I just really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story with us.
Well, I appreciate you having me, Chris, and I really enjoyed this, and I really enjoy your show.
Well, thanks, Coach. Podcast is proudly brought to you by Titan Sensor. Season 7.